CNN, the Nashville Network.
The history of one club is the history of today's stock cars, with roots in the early 70s. Among its first heroes in the 70s, Mark Martin and Rusty Wallace, literally exuberant teens. It produced career competitors pointing the way, Fair, Seneca, and then today's new wave strapping in with that same Waltrip vision. That was then, the future is now. Fresh approaches, Benson, Allen, and St. Amant in steel, but still chasing the man for all seasons of ASA, Mike Eddy, in his 19th ASA year, today pursuing more immortality.
Hello from Nashville, and today is the most important day in the history of the American Speed Association. For the first time, they're live on national television. Now, this division is so respected within racing circles that from coast to coast, cars of this weight, size, and ilk are simply referred to as ASA-type cars. It's the standard. Hi, everybody. I'm Larry Newber, and joining me on this broadcast is a man who has seen more ASA races than any other journalist in the country over the past decade, Rob Albright. And Rob, this has been an electric week.
It sure has. And Larry, for more than 2 decades, those of us on the inside have believed that ASA was the best kept secret in motorsports. Today, these guys come out of the shadows into the spotlight, and I think it's going to put some tremendous additional pressure on many of them, especially the younger drivers.
It's been a week of parties and television and radio interviews. All the drivers yesterday thought that this track would be ice. It was that slippery with the tire and track combination, but could be different.
I think, Larry, that pit stop strategy today will determine the ultimate outcome of this event. Yesterday it was sunny, extremely hot and humid. The humidity remains today. The sun is gone, at least for the moment. I think 4 pit stops may be the rule of the day, and will determine the race.
The third member of our broadcast team is the veteran Ralph Shaheen, and he is standing by with, we call him one of the surprises of the 1991 season. He was just Rookie of the Year a year ago, and today he's leading the point standings.
Johnny Benson Jr. has never finished outside of the top 5 so far in 1991. He has also never qualified worse than 7, but he still hasn't gotten a win. Now that qualification bit went down the drain a little bit today. Johnny, you're starting 11th on the grid and you're still looking for that win. Probably not where you were hoping to start today.
No, we were hoping to definitely start further up front, but this will give us a chance to pass a couple cars and see what the track's doing.
We've had a little bit of rain, a lot of humidity increasing. What is that going to do to you stamina-wise, and is this race car going to be set up okay for the start of this race?
We're hoping that the setup's pretty close. The heat's going to be bad. Humidity's high, it's hot, and it's going to drain us a little bit, but once you get going, you try not to think about that too much.
Well, 11th isn't where he wanted to start, but he is still looking for that elusive win. All that means is Johnny Benson Jr. just has to work a little harder today.
He has to work around 31 other competitors. This is one of the most exciting racetracks in the country. It's a little more than a half mile, but it is high banked. The Nashville Motor Raceway on the fairgrounds. This is Music City. It's an exciting town. We're going to have a great race today, and Ralph Shaheen is standing by with some of the many dignitaries attending today's festivities.
2 special people joining me down here, Larry, at the head of the grid. Mr. Archie Long, the executive in charge of General Motors Service Parts Operations, and TNN's #1 race fan, Katie Haas. Katie?
All right, Ralph, we're so glad to be here. I tell you what, TNN already has a very large commitment to racing, and we're very proud to be bringing to you, our racing fans, more coverage. This year, the first televised edition of the American Speed Association's race, the ASA. Archie, welcome to Nashville. We're glad to be here.
Thank you very much. We're very pleased to be here as well. You know, this race is going to be a great race. The Delco Voyager 250 is the AC Delco Challenge Series. Fantastic day. Rained a little bit this morning. Looks great now.
Oh, this is a great track, the South's premier track out here. We have a lot of fans out here, and you know what they're waiting for. What do they say in the ASA?
Oh, yes. Gentlemen, are they going to hear me, I wonder? Gentlemen, let's go racing.
All right. They can hear you.
Archie Long with the command and over 15,000 horsepower fires to life on pit road here at the Nashville Motor Raceway. We will go 250 laps today. This is the AC Delco Voyager Battery 250 from the Nashville Motor Raceway. Back with the grid after this. The 1991 AC Delco Challenge Series on TNN is brought to you by Delco Voyager, reliable, durable for the long day. And by Coors Light, the one that won't slow you down. The Silver Bullet is the right beer now. And by Goodyear, the unanimous choice of every race team in the AC Delco Challenge Series. And by Liquid Crystal, guaranteed to provide the best shine and protection. And by Just for Men, from the leader in men's hair coloring, blends away gray in 5 minutes. Well, as you heard Archie Long mention, it rained here earlier today, but it burned off about an hour ago. The temperature is 80. It seems like 180. Humidity, it's way up there. Winds minimal. Yeah, it called for partly cloudy, and I guess that's where we are right now, Rob.
We sure are. The track itself, Larry, just a touch under 0.6 of a mile in length. The turns banked at 25 degrees are extremely abrasive. The drivers have told us they're tremendously different from one end to the other, and it requires a compromised setup of the race cars. The straightaways, a bit longer than 2 football fields.
It shows 25 degrees, but there is great history in the banking of this racetrack. At one time, it was the highest banked racetrack in America. They said 35 degrees. Many of the drivers, including Darrell Waltrip, said we felt it was around 40 degrees. And now the starting grid for today's AC Delco Voyager Battery 250.
The top 25 qualifiers all within half a second of one another. Scott Hansen will go from the pole position. Runner-up in the point standings, lives in the shadows of Packer Stadium in Green Bay. Darrell Waltrip won his first ASA race as a youngster in 1972.
In row 2, a veteran and a youngster. Twice runner-up in points, Harold Fair, and Glenn Allen Jr., just 20 years of age.
ASA's all-time winningest driver with 66 career victories, the defending national champion Bob Seneker, and the 1987 ASA Rookie of the Year, currently leading the NASCAR rookie points, Ted Musgrave.
7th and 8th start positions are Tim Steele in car number 89 and Kent Stauffer in car number 90.
And in the 5th row, 5-time national champion, winner of 3 consecutive races in the AC Delco Challenge Series, car number 88, Michigan's Mike Eddy, and young Jeff Neal in car number 5.
In the 6th row, 11th and 12th starting positions, point leader John Benson out of Michigan on the inside, and Dennis Lampman having his best ASA season ever on the outside.
The 7th row, Dave Jackson in car number 45. They call him the man in orange. The car, the uniform, everything is orange. In the 0 hero from Illinois, Tom Jones.
One of many siblings of Winston Cup race driver Jim Sauter. That's Jay Sauter on the inside, and the outside in the 16th starting position, the debut of the Ford engine car, Tim Fedowa from Lansing, Michigan.
The 9th row, Joe Shear in car number 36 will go for the inside position. And the guy who won the All-American 400, ASA's last visit to Nashville Raceway, car number 7, Gary St. Amant.
And a man who crashed in practice yesterday. We did not know if he was going to be able to go. Ken Schrader, he borrowed a car overnight. He starts in 19th position. Bruce Vanderlyn out of Grand Rapids, Michigan, and a Pontiac is on the outside. The rest of the starting positions from 11th row on back, Dennis Vogel will start on the inside of that row with Scott Walters on the outside. The 12th row side by side, Scott Kaiser and John Olson out of Wisconsin. In row number 13, Pat Bordow, who had a great last chance race yesterday afternoon, and Tom Harrington. The 14th row, Indiana's Tony Raines, now residing in Pennsylvania, and Terry Baldry, also having a solid season. In the 15th row, John Wilson from Springfield, Ohio, and from nearby, Dayton, Ohio, nearby to Springfield, Dean South. In 16th row, car number 86, Kenny Adams. He starts on the left flank, and on the right or outside flank, that's Dave Stamm. That comprises the starting grid of 32 cars. The 16 fastest qualifiers got in to one-lap qualification runs yesterday. We had a last chance race, and then several promoters' options based primarily on point standings.
What we'll really want to watch early, I think, Larry, is keeping focus on Tony Raines back in car number 25. Now we're riding on board with Harold Fair in car number 81. And he likes this track. He expects to do well today. His best starting position this season.
and this unusual angle from the roof of Harold Baer's race car. This is the man who is the proprietor of a gas station in one of the economically, let's say, not advantaged areas of Detroit. He's an accepted and respected citizen of that community.
Harold said that he'd like to retire by racing full-time and give up the gas station. Now we're inside the car of Mike Eddy, car number 88, the Nationwide Auto Parts Pontiac. He's gunning for a 4th consecutive victory. That would tie a record established by Butch Miller in 1987.
And if he does that, you're going to ride with him. There is Mike Eddy chomping on the gum, going through the mental checklist and looking pretty relaxed as he's getting ready to go for 250 laps. Mike has to be feeling good. He usually doesn't qualify this well. This is a great start for him.
No, he doesn't. And in fact, it almost works to his advantage to not qualify well. Qualifying well today, let's see what he does at the start. As Mike says, I didn't come here today to make friends.
Scott Hansen will be bringing the field around. On the outside of the front row, it's the responsibility of Darrell Waltrip to bring that train around. Waltrip in the bright orange, black, white, and silver number 17, the familiar colors now, and Hansen in a predominantly white number 53. Scott Hansen has become one of the stars of the American Speed Association, really in 2 short years.
Although Scott was the Rookie of the Year in ASA in 1989, by racing standards, he was definitely not a rookie. He was 4-time champion of the Fox River Racing Association in Wisconsin and has run a number of different types of racetracks. He, I think, in the minds of many of the drivers, Larry, is the guy to beat for the championship in 1991.
Darrell Waltrip darting to the high side, trying to work some heat into those tires. That should not be a problem here at Nashville. We mentioned to you earlier that that was one of the concerns the drivers had yesterday.
And there's car number 25, Tony Raines. It's been an up-and-down season in the early going. He's been extremely fast, but he's had all sorts of mechanical problems that have plagued him, and that evidenced itself again yesterday. Tony ready to go racing.
The crowd stands anticipating the green flag. Hansen and Waltrip. Baer on a corner number 4. Hansen gets a gigantic jump. We're green at Nashville.
Scott Hansen leading the field down into turn number 1 with Darrell Waltrip right behind as the field files past the start-finish line.
250 laps to go. Despite that deficit that Waltrip got at the start, he moves in on Hansen.
The most terrifying part of any race is the early stages of the event. A lot of these drivers either have sponsors today that they want to impress on national television, or they're seeking national sponsorship. We expect to see moves back in the pack. 2 drivers right now that are only focused on one another. The pole sitter and current leader Scott Hansen, and pressing him hard in the very early going, trying down low, now working to the high side, Darrell Waltrip in car number 17.
ASA racing is not unlike any other form of racing in America. It's not often that the people who bleed and dominate the first 10 laps of the race win. Michael Andretti, I know, has been discounting that theory of recent. This is not an indication that Hansen and Waltrip are going to dominate this race, although every driver to a man fears Waltrip at this track.
Well, they certainly do. When I talked to Ted Musgrave in the pit area after qualifying yesterday, he pretty much had conceded this race to Waltrip. He said Waltrip had installed some trick things on the rear suspension of his race car that he thought would work to his advantage as the right side tires begin to wear.
Waltrip goes to the inside of Hansen into corner number 1. He holds the line coming out of 2. Hansen tromps the accelerator out of the high bank, corner number 2. Waltrip snuggles right down on the bottom. That car is working.
As close as qualifications were yesterday, I'm surprised, Larry, that these 2 drivers have been able to build such a significant early lead over the 3rd place car of Harold Fair at this moment.
Rob, I'll tell you, we're going to document a story for you about the man whom I believe is the fastest guy in the racetrack in these early laps. We're going to show him to you right now. It's a white number 90. It's Kent Stauffer, and there he is. He's had a tremendous race. He's running 4th.
Larry, if there's a guy in this series that epitomizes the terminology blue-collar racer, it's Kent Stauffer in car number 90. A lot of folks have felt for a number of years since he built and maintained his own race cars that if he ever got a shot at the really good stuff, he could run up in front. He's excited. He brought a brand new car to Nashville this weekend, a brand new Ford V6 underneath the hood, and he's sure making those folks in Dearborn happy in the early going.
Kent Stauffer is running right now in 4th position on the racetrack. He is currently ranked 11th in the point standings, and as Rob mentioned, is one of only 2 Fords in this race. And Stauffer has just turned in a terrific ride. He is actually closed in on the 2 race leaders, Darrell Waltrip and Scott Hansen.
But I wonder at this point is if Darrell Waltrip's strategy is wise. We watched a last chance qualifying race yesterday, Larry. Went down to the pits and looked at the tires of the race cars, and they were literally worn out after 25 laps with a much harder compound than these drivers used last year. These are, in fact, the same tires that they utilized on the very fast Milwaukee Mile.
I think one of the keys that you'll see, watch where Waltrip and Hansen run when they're in the race, when they're in the corners. They're right down on the bottom, saving those tires as much as they possibly can.
I think a lot of the drivers at this juncture are not too concerned about picking their way to the front. Most of the front runners that we talked about, or talked to yesterday, the drivers that are expected to contest for the win today, said that probably 4 pit stops would be required to change right side tires 3 times and the lefts at least once. And I think that bears pointing out, Larry, you can only change 2 tires at a time on any yellow flag pit stop. And that will create some real strategy on the part of the drivers and their pit crews.
Mike Eddy has been the man to beat. Now this is another double-digit of car. This is the green and white number 66 of Glenn Allen Jr. Twice this year he has sat on the pole, and Rob, he is backing up. He has a problem.
He certainly does. Johnny Benson Jr., the current points leader, just went past him as the leaders already have begun to move into some lap traffic.
It's Waltrip, Hansen, as we take a look at 20-year-old Glenn Allen, the former high school football star. Third is Harold Fair with Kent Stouffer. Yes, that's right, ASA fans. Kent Stouffer running a very competitive 4th position and moving in. Right now in 5th position is used to be the Bluebird. Now it's Bob Seneca in a predominantly white car. And one of the race favorites has pitted. Pulling into pit lane is Ted Musgrave.
Well, it works to Ted's disadvantage that he runs only a handful of ASA shows. He runs now predominantly in the Deep South. This is his first appearance with ASA in 1991, and the biggest question that I had was the preparedness of this race car.
Ralph Shaheen is standing by in the pits talking with the man calling the shots for Darrell Waltrip.
That man is Eddie Jones. Eddie, Darrell's running away from him right now. Is that a safe strategy? Can he keep this pace up all day?
Well, it's always been Darrell's practice here at Nashville to run as good as he could all day because you never know when anything's going to happen. Any advantage he gets like any other race, you just have to take it and run while you can.
Are you worried about tire wear here?
No, not at this time because we'll be everyone's going to have to wear the same, change the same, so we think we'll be in pretty good shape. Tires look good in practice.
14 laps are down. That means we have about 235 to go. There is race leader Darrell Waltrip. Just to update you on Musgrave, he has pulled from the pits, and now our latest victim on the racetrack is Jeff Neal, a man who comes from a racing family known for developing racing engines, is just about coming to a stop on the back straightaway. I don't think he's going to make it all the way around.
This is a major disappointment for Jeff Neal. He had such high expectations here today. He'd been off to his best start in 1991 since he earned the Rookie of the Year honors in 1988. He had several top 10 finishes to his credit. He ranked 7th in the point standings, and they had a special thing to work for today. His crew chief, Harold Fair's son, Harold Jr., had his grandfather pass away this week. So they were really hoping for a strong run in the Z-Rex Buick here this weekend.
The yellow coming out for Jeff Neal, who started this race in 10th position, but with the yellow coming out now and his car sitting silently at the entrance of corner number 3, he's going to be slipping back several laps. He was very anticipatory about today's race. He had a lot of confidence coming in here. He actually felt that he had a shot at the first couple of rows, but it didn't work out that way. Respectable, he was 10th, but there wasn't quite the competitiveness that he had hoped for.
Jeff Neal did not want to be out of this race this early. You can literally feel with him the frustration that has welled up in his heart as he sits haplessly and helplessly in car number 5 on the backstretch.
We commented about Glenn Allen Jr., the Cincinnati, Ohio. We no longer can call him a teenager. Now he's finally 20, slowing down noticeably in the early laps. Ralph Shaheen.
Well, they've got the problem underneath the hood, Larry. They think they are losing a cylinder. So Glenn Allen is radioed into the crew. The crew is going to work under the hood, searching for the problem. They're going to put the hood back down and send it back out and hopefully see if it wasn't the cylinder, but maybe something a little bit more minor than that. So right now, frustration for Glenn Allen Jr. as well.
Occasionally, Larry, it can be something as simple as a spark plug wire that has come loose from the race car, a wire off the distributor, something in the ignition system, and I'm sure that's what they're hoping for at this moment.
Glenn Allen Jr. is certainly one of the rising stars in the American Speed Association, and people are predicting great things for this young man. You mentioned He's only 20, but this is actually his 5th season in the American Speed Association. He started the season off with a roar, 2 poles plus a win at Columbus, Ohio, not too far from his home of Cincinnati, but it's been a struggle since then.
I've never seen anyone mature in such a short period of time. His first year, he was a literal joke on the racetrack. A lot of folks thought his father, Glenn Allen Sr., had brought him to the major leagues too soon. Every racetrack he spun, most tracks, he hit something or somebody. Boy, has he grown up, and he proved that he has the mettle to run up front by winning the opening race of the season this year at Columbus.
Rob, you may have been very close. Ralph reports that apparently it was a spark plug problem for Glenn Allen Jr., so he'll go back to the back of the pack. We've only had 2 cars drop to the wayside at this point. Jeff Neal's car, the Xerox number 5, sits in the pit area at this point, as does Tim Fedowa's brand new Ford Thunderbird. We're going back to green, and Glenn Allen has got work cut out for him.
He certainly does. Well at the rear of the pack. Ted Musgrave is back there as well, but he's several laps down. And we also noticed that Rookie of the Year leader Tim Fedowa has brought his brand new Ford Thunderbird on pit road, so maybe Ralph can bring us up to date on what's going there as Waltrip just continues to set the pace out front.
Back green at the Nashville Motor Raceway. This is the American Speed Association live on TNN, and Darrell Waltrip has grabbed the early lead after about 1/10 of this race has gone by. Running second is pole setter Scott Hansen, and there is a change for position in the top 10.
Mike Eddy is now trying to make his way toward the front. He's not normally known for his patience. He likes to get to the front and run in front as long as he can, literally sideways out of turn number 4 as he tries to make the move on the youngster from Michigan, Tim Steele. And Steele is no slouch, Gary. He will not move over and let him by.
Riding with Mike Eddy. Let's follow him around as he follows Tim Steele.
And you can see just how rough a ride it is for these drivers as we continue to ride with Mike Eddy. And for Ted Musgrave fans, Larry, back on pit road for a second time. Not a good day.
Ted Musgrave back in the pits. He had a left, make that a right front tire go flat. His first problem was a panhard bar that moved on him. Jeff Neal's problem, we found out, gentlemen, was ignition problems. They pushed that car back behind the wall now, and we'll try and get a word with Jeff.
Mike Eddy continues to do battle with Tim Steele in car number 89, and look who's lurking right behind him. It's our current points leader, Johnny Benson Jr., who's begun to show some strength in car number 21.
At 6th and 7th, well, it's a tie for 6th right now. Number 88 on the inside, number 89 on the outside. Apparently, that's Steele's problem. His digit number is 1 too high than Mike Eddy. 6th and 7th again. You mentioned Benson. He is 8th, and running in 9th right now is Dennis Lantman. Again, Dennis also having a terrific season this year in the ASA. Eddy and Steele come together out of corner number 2. There's a bump right there when the cars go over a tunnel that leads from the outside of the track to the inside.
And now this is what Mike Eddy would see if he had a rear view mirror and was able to see what's going on with Tim Steele. Steele just will not give up the fight. And
trouble in corner number 4.
And down in turn number 4, several cars have come together. You can see the smoke. Pat Bordeaux involved in car number 4. The rookie Kenny Adams in car number 86.
And I think
also.
Glenn Allen was also swept up in that. It was just a slight love tap as most of the confusion was over by the time Allen got there. But another setback for Glenn Allen. If the yellow comes out, he does remain on the lead lap.
Glenn Allen had been trying to pick his way back up toward the front of the field. The ignition problem apparently solved for car number 66, and Larry came very close to going a lap down early.
He did indeed. We've gone back yellow with 27 laps down. Darrell Waltrip continues to set the pace here. Now, here's what the wreck looked like from the camera that we have perched right on top of the wall coming out at corner number 4.
Exiting the 4th turn, looking now for Glenn Allen Jr. He was really not involved. He was caught up in a tangle between car number 86, that's the machine of Kenny Adams, the Willowick, Ohio chauffeur, and Pat Bordeaux, who today was making his first ever ASA start, a rather inauspicious debut.
So the hometown boy, or the man who knows this racetrack better than anybody else, good old DW, has been showing his heels to everybody. Can he hold on? We'll find out.
You always want to put on your best show when the folks that sponsor your racing series are on hand, and we see 3 of the top folks from General Motors and AC Delco looking on with great anticipation. It's obvious that they're really into this. Archie Long, Brent Nelson, and Gil Cashin all with us this afternoon.
Here is Mike Eddy, who has radioed in from the cockpit saying that there is oil all over the racetrack. There was a spin in turns 3 and 4 executed by Dennis Vogel. He's in that yellow-orange car. You'll see him spinning into to the screen here, and no one else coming into contact with him. There's Vogel. The rest of the field taking evasive action, going to the high side as Dennis is down in the bottom. He'll drop that car down into first gear and pull back out in front of the rest of the crowd, but the yellow flag had already flown, but Eddie and Seneca were so busy with each other, they didn't have an opportunity to see it. Here's the end of that incident.
Well, you can see that Mike Eddy elects to go low. I'm not sure I would have taken that line. With Vogel dropping down to the bottom of the racetrack, he was very fortunate to escape.
But Mike Eddy and Darrell Waltrip survive. Again, they chose not to pit. Now we're inside of 30 laps to go, so definitely in the final stages of this race. Bob Seneca, John Benson Jr., Scott Hansen out of Wisconsin, all those drivers who were threats to win this race chose to come in for new rubber. Waltrip and Eddy did not. And I have a feeling, Ralph, that it was a matter of monkey see, monkey do for Eddy and Waltrip. What do you think?
I think you're right, Larry. This is exactly what this race is going to come down to, according to the crew chiefs of Darrell Waltrip and Mike Eddy. Bias ply tires from Goodyear. These tires are both on the same cars. Now, Mike Eddy's crew chief was telling me he thinks the tires that are on that car right now are good enough for third place, maybe not much better. He says what we're going to find out now is just how tough Mike Eddy really is.
Ralph, it's a very warm day, and I'm noticing a bit of a sheen or a shine. Are you getting warm down there?
We are very warm down here, Larry. I'll tell you what. I think the drivers are probably losing a few pounds. I think my camera crew and I are doing the same.
It's got to be very difficult in the cockpit, particularly with all the yellow flags we've had today. That's when the drivers are most uncomfortable because they don't have that 100-mile-an-hour wind blowing through the cockpit, and when they're not busy at work, their mind wanders to other things, and they get very warm at those moments.
Drivers are often asked, what do you do to prepare for a long-distance race in the heat temperatures that feel inside the race car? There's really no physical exercise that you can do. There's no substitute for laps behind the wheel. Yes, if you're in good shape and you're trim and you eat right and all those good things that you often hear about, that helps. But, you know, there's no substitution for just being out there on the racetrack.
Saw the graphic on Mike Eddy, his career stats well over 50% in the top 5. We commented that we started 32 cars today. 40 actually attempted to qualify for this race. Drivers who showed up here at Nashville who did not get into the field. Len Kubian in car number 92. We'll get back to that list in just a moment. Here are the upcoming ASA races live on TNN. You can see the dates, a couple of weeks, July 14th, July 28th, August 11th from Pennsylvania, the Jennerstown racetrack, and the Minnesota State Fair in September. We are just about ready to go back to green. We'll continue to run down that list of drivers who did not qualify for this race a little later, but the green flag flickers, and Mike Eddy, who's had a chance to breathe, relax, and maybe plot some strategy to hold off Darrell Waltrip, goes back to the front.
I'm not sure those guys chose right by staying out on the racetrack. You just saw back in the pack Bob Seneca and Johnny Benson really moving
Eddy.
up.
Mike Eddy loses the handle in corner number 4. The crowd rises to the occasion. Waltrip senses the kill, moves to the inside. Eddy now really with his hands full.
Well, there's a story that's circulating. The only guy that Dale Earnhardt's afraid of is Mike Eddy. Perhaps the same could be said for Darrell Waltrip.
Somehow Eddy was able to turn back Waltrip. He was way out of shape in corner number 4. Waltrip was neck and neck with him coming down the front straightaway, but somehow Eddy was able to turn him away.
On this ground, back in third position, you can see Jay Sauter in car number 1. He's lurked outside of the top 5 most of the day. Now finds himself in the third position on the racetrack as the battle reforms for the lead.
Inside of 25 laps to go. The drivers who stopped for new tires are still in slower traffic. Bob Seneca looks like he will be the first among those drivers who stopped for new tires to break from the pack. He is about 100 yards behind the leaders. There is Seneca. He has just moved underneath Ken Stauffer. Stauffer had a strong day. He has never contended for the lead, but he's been in the top 5. There's John Benson Jr. in car number 21. New tires. He moves underneath Stauffer.
He picks up the 5th position. Behind him comes car number 53, Scott Hansen, and Tony Raines in the 25 machine. Great racing back in the pack among cars on the lead lap.
Joe Scheer is right behind this quartet. Kenny Schrader is in there. We're checking with timing and scoring to see if Schrader is on the lead lap. He had a long pit stop a little earlier. He is 2 laps down, so if you see Schrader, the bright yellow car, he is not in it for top 10.
With less than 25 laps to go, Larry, and maybe this is an unfair question, which of these two drivers up front would you say has the greater determination? What would give him that additional incentive?
It's a toss-up. Mike Eddy, it's not so much that he wants to create history and win his 4th win in a row. Mike Eddy wants to win every time out. I think he totally forgets any additional incentive other than winning when he buckles up to race. Darrell Waltrip feels as though he has a lot of pride at stake here. This is his home racetrack. He does not expect to be beaten at Nashville.
Cars contending for 4th position. Johnny Vincent, Tony Raines, and Scott Hansen.
Looking at 4th position, there's the trio right there. Vincent, Hansen, Raines. Boy, they are all tied together. 2, sometimes 3 abreast around the high bank corners here in the half mile at Nashville. Raines was the quicker one earlier. Hansen gets into the back of John Benson. Benson almost comes around. Hansen leaves him go. The battle resumes.
It appears that both Raines and Hansen have quicker race cars. Benson almost loses it. They'll come out of turn number 4, and Raines picks up a position.
Twice in that last lap, Scott Hansen was running so much quicker than John Benson. You see the damage on the rear of Benson's car. He almost took him out. Unintentionally? Yes, sir.
And the black number 36 of Joe Shear right there to challenge as well. He wants 6th position, and here comes Waltrip.
Lap number 234 goes by. 15 laps to go. Waltrip holds on the high side. He chooses the 2nd lane. He says, I hope the RPMs work. He's a little quicker than Eddy. Eddy says he has a handling problem. Waltrip, a great charge into number 3.
I don't want to say this too loudly, but look who's creeping into the frame in 3rd position with fresh tires on the right side. Bob Seneker, the sneaker, is there to challenge as well.
15 laps to go. Eddy moves up about a half a lane, says, hey, Waltrip, if you're going to pass me, you've got to consider lane number 3. Waltrip with more of an advantage this time, going into corner number 3. They're trading paint. It's black, it's orange, it's silver, it's white. Side by side, there are now 3 of them in this one.
Seneker is winless in 1989. He'd like to do it on national television this afternoon. Waltrip has a slight advantage as they move out of turn number 2. Now Eddy comes back to challenge on the bottom.
Eddy,
what a race!
Eddy just will not give up. He goes over the hump at the tunnel. He almost loses control, but he keeps going straight. Waltrip seemingly had buried Mike Eddy about 3 times in the last 3 laps, but Eddy holds his ground.
Waltrip has the lead. Here comes Seneker. He wants 2nd. Maybe Ralph Shaheen a bit prophetic in saying that Mike Eddy did not have the best handling race car after the last yellow flag.
Look at Seneker. Seneker really dives into corner number 3. Waltrip is looking to the right. He's saying, oh my goodness, I didn't see this guy coming.
Lane Automotive Chevrolet of Bob Seneker without a major sponsor wants the win. He wants the lead. Look from Mike Eddy's viewpoint. Seneker right up on the edge of control. He's right up on where the track gets very, very slippery.
And Eddy is saying, okay, Seneker, get up alongside. You guys trade some paint. Maybe I can sneak back. But they are putting a little distance between themselves and the 3rd running now, Mike Eddy. Oh, Seneker, look how close he was to the wall.
He obviously has the strongest car out there, but he does not have the most laps on this racetrack. Waltrip is wrestling a beast right now. Larry, did you see that time as he went from turn number 2, just how sideways he was?
Look at Bob Seneker. Bob Seneker says, I think I can take this guy on the inside. This time by, we will be completing lap number 238. The scoreboard has gone out. That's a judgment call. I saw 13 laps about 1 lap ago. Seneker really gets a good bite going into number 1 this time.
Out of turn number 2, Dennis Vogel once again comes into play, the lap machine, car number 51.
Oh.
And look at Waltrip's move to the high side.
9 to go this time. I missed by 3 laps. The action has been so hot and heavy, you lose track. Bob Seneker says, I have the faster car. I want to beat this guy. Waltrip says, no way. This is my forest, buddy.
Well, we've got to watch what's going on up front. The back of the pack, a very similar battle for the 4th position. Again, Seneker moves down low. Again, he's alongside Darrell Waltrip. Who's it going to be coming off the 4th corner? A slight edge maybe for Seneker.
And here comes more slower traffic looming ahead, so Waltrip spies it. It's John Olson. He gets as close to Olson as he possibly can, and Seneker has to get out of the throttle.
Down the back straightaway with just a handful of laps to go. Darrell Waltrip fighting for all he's worth. He's out of the groove.
Waltrip loses it. Apparently a tire problem, but he comes back to the inside. Oh, wow.
Incredible. Darrell Waltrip reassumes the lead, and this grandstand is going absolutely delirious.
Waltrip apparently has really damaged the tires. He comes almost to a stop. Seneker plows into the tail of Waltrip. Waltrip is almost out of control. If Seneca could somehow just hold on to his emotions, I think he's got him.
Well, if there's a guy that can control his emotions, it's Bob Seneca. He's been called by some folks aloof. He's really just a quiet, introspective type guy until he climbs behind the wheel of a race car.
That last move by Darrell Waltrip after he lost the lead to come back and do the old traditional racing crossover to come back was an artist at work. It was a superlative.
That's a gutsy move. You really put your car in jeopardy when you do that. You run literally on the edge of control when that happens. 5 laps to go, Larry. Has Seneca used up what he had in the way of an advantage with fresher tires?
I'll tell you, it's almost not proper to talk over this. These guys are putting on a terrific show. There's Waltrip getting out of the groove again. Slower traffic up ahead. Does Seneca have an advantage this time? I don't know. He seems to have lost the edge.
Mike Eddy is still there in car number 88, but he's now fallen about 10 car lengths in arrears. 4 laps to go, and again, Seneca down to the low side.
Just a half-mile track. It takes about 21 seconds to get around. We have about 80 seconds to go. After crossing the start-finish line this time, about 60 seconds to go. Lap 247 is now in the books. Waltrip slides through corner number 1 and 2, but he has a car length advantage. Bob Seneca dives to the low side in corner number 3, lap number 248 coming up this time. Seneca is all over the racetrack. He is out of tires. Waltrip, we suspect, is out of tires. 2 laps to go.
Well, Darrell has been the proverbial cat with 9 lives as he's had lap traffic to utilize several times, but he may not need those lap cars.
A lap and a half to go. 30 seconds to go. Seneca says, I got to charge a little harder. How many tires do you have left here? That are good. The white flag this time around. We have just 20 seconds to go in this race. Darrell Waltrip looks like he's in control, but Seneca won't say die. He moves to the inside.
There have been 10 lead changes, maybe one more, maybe not. 2 drivers, 2 divergent opinions. Here comes Seneca. We're going to have a battle to the checkered off turn number 4.
They are side by side, fender to fender. Seneca wiggles just a little bit, and Darrell Waltrip, much to the delight of an extremely partisan crowd, comes home the winner. The reputation is safe.
What an amazing finish to this race. Darrell Waltrip has not competed in an ASA event this year. He brings a 4-year-old machine to the racetrack, does some trick things to the suspension on the rear end of that race car, and drives the Western Auto AC Delco Chevrolet Lumina to a victory. And I'll tell you, he's leading a charmed life wherever he races in 1991.
Ralph Shaheen, the one thing that I really wish that I could do in every race was to have the opportunity to interview the race winner, and you're going to have a real thrill this time, Ralph. That was a terrific race. I hope you had an opportunity to see it down there. Waltrip has got to be excited. This was a race that went literally right down to the wire, and he really showed the old aggressive Darrell Waltrip is still there.
Waltrip won the race, Larry, but I think what, if nothing else, was proven to race fans this afternoon, that these ASA drivers are the toughest competitors, the toughest hombres on the short tracks.
Well, Darrell Waltrip, the man who in the 1960s and 70s owned the Nashville Motor Speedway, proved that in 1991, he still got the title. Welcome back to Nashville, where we have just seen one of the most exciting ASA races in history, and how appropriate it was for the first ASA race ever live on national TV. The unofficial results: Darrell Waltrip, the winner; Bob Seneca, a challenging second; Mike Eddy is third; Scott Hansen fourth; and Tony Raines, the youngster, comes home fifth. Well, Ralph, I'm looking forward to this one. Take her away, buddy.
Well, Larry, a very tired Darrell Waltrip joins us here in Victory Circle. Hugs all the way around. Here comes his wife, Stevie. Darrell, I've seen you drive a lot of races, my friend, but that, I think, was the epitome of Darrell Waltrip behind the wheel.
Well, I tell you, Seneca was tough on them new tires, and we got together a little bit there a time or two, but I just had to hang on. I didn't want to give up that lead. I wanted to win this sucker, and Bob did too, I know, and I congratulate him. He could have really took me out probably anytime he wanted to, but we had a great race in Western Auto, AC Delco, Exxon, Goodyear tires. They all came through for us today, and it's just a great day. It's fun to win at home, I tell you.
Well,
I thank the Lord, too, for a good day. I don't care what they write in the newspaper. I thank the Lord.
Well, before you had to deal with Bob Seneca, you had to shake Mike Eddy.
Well, I knew Mike had been kind of fast for a few laps, and he seemed like he faded a tad. So I didn't know what would happen with him, but Mike's a tough competitor. I guess he's the Dale Earnhardt of ASA, if you want to look at it that way. And So I didn't want to, I just needed to kind of let him do his thing and then see what I could do with him. Then Seneca got in the picture, and that really put the heat on. They said, Seneca's coming, and if you're going to do anything, you better get going. I thought I could get the high line, and it worked. And then I thought I could go back down low and hold Bob off, but that didn't work. So I had to go back up high, and it was like running on dirt, but it was fun.
Well, some of the guys conceded this race almost to you before it even started. They said, Waltrip's got something none of us has got. It's in the rear end. You got the win. Do you want to tell us what it is?
We just run a Winston Cup gear in this car like we do on our Winston Cup car, and the rest of these boys run a quick change or whatever, and it's no big trick or secret or anything. Dick Beatty would be real proud of me. He could pull that sucker out, and she's stock as it is day long.
We got here's Archie Long coming in from AC Delco with him as well. He's going to...
I had to win because Arch was here, and he told me if I didn't win, he wasn't going to pull for me no more. Eat your heart out, Earnhardt. I got Arch here with me.
Darrell Waltrip, Archie Long, his wife, the rest of the gang down here from the Western Auto Crew. A big celebration here in Victory Lane in Darrell Waltrip's own hometown of Nashville. Larry?
Ralph, an obvious reference to the company that's on the side of Dale Earnhardt's Winston Cup car. It's also GM. Here again is that unofficial result rundown. Waltrip, Seneca, Eddie, Hansen, and Raines. The top 5 remain as we told you earlier. And here are the remaining cars in the top 10. Joe Shear and Jay Sauter and Johnny Benson Jr., Kent Stauffer, and Ken Schrader. The first 9 cars finished on the lead lap. But in the end, even though we had several lead changes, it came down to just 2 race cars, number 17 and number 84. And it was a couple of classic veterans. We called them artists earlier, and here's a nice slow motion look at what went on inside the last 5 laps.
I don't know whether or not you could compare this to ballet, but watch this move by Darrell Waltrip. He goes to the high side and then immediately points the thing right to the bottom of the race course. Did you see the little wiggle as he came off of that 4th turn? He very easily could have spun.
Well, what happened was that Waltrip knew he'd made a mistake into the number 1 corner. Darrell slows down to hold on to the race car, and Seneca gives him just a little nudge and then a second nudge as Waltrip almost comes to a stop, relatively speaking, in front of him.
After the first bump, Waltrip was slow. You could see Seneca allow some daylight. He got out of the throttle, allowed Darrell to get his car straightened out before he resumed the challenge.
Back to that Waltrip move, though, what happened was he realized he had made a mistake entering the corner. He immediately made the decision, I'm diving low, and I'm going to go get that lead back because I know where Seneca is going. I've just opened the door for him.
Well, he sure did. And this was, I know, one that Darrell wanted to win. He wanted to come back to the grassroots. He won his first ASA race back in 1972. The last victory came for him right here at Nashville Motor Raceway. A similar finish. Mark Martin appeared to have the race well in hand in the All-American 400 before running out of brakes, and Waltrip zoomed by him with just a couple of circuits to go.
But for the pride of Franklin, Tennessee, Darrell Waltrip, that was his 6th career win in the American Speed Association history. And certainly none of them were any more difficult than this. Unofficial results, top 10, Darrell Waltrip, Bob Seneca, 1-2. It was very close. Mike Eddy comes home 3rd. Scott Hansen from the pole gets 4th. And Tony Raines, whom you just heard from, was 5th. 6th through 10th, Joe Shear, Jay Sauter, Johnny Benson. Kent Stauffer was not on the lead lap. 1 lap down, car number 90, Kent Stauffer, the Ford. And Ken Schrader, in a borrowed machine, comes home in 10th position, also losing 1 lap.
Larry, next up for the televiewers is in 2 weeks on the Milwaukee Mile, but it gets very difficult for these race drivers. 2,000 miles out west to Calgary in the Players 500 in conjunction with the rodeo.
This is a view of the last couple laps of action. One other view you can see of Bob Seneca and Darrell Waltrip coming very close several times and actually meeting on the racetrack in those final laps. The lead changed hands twice within the last 3 laps. Darrell Waltrip looked like he had lost this race. He came back, he stayed on the throttle, and out-nerved Bob Seneca going into the number 1 corner. Bob Seneca held on, and he came home 2nd. Rob, any final thoughts?
Tremendous show between 2 of the very best.
Well, this was very appropriate. The first ASA live nationwide race in history, and it was one of the finest in the history of the American Speed Association. My thanks to Ralph Shaheen and Rob Albright. We've had a tremendous race here today, and we hope that all of you at home watching live on the Nashville Network enjoyed it. Our thanks to Group 5 Sports and, of course, the American Speed Association for their cooperation in the production of this race. Until Milwaukee or the next motor race on the Nashville Network, this is Larry Newber. We'll see you at the races.